All right, welcome everybody. We've got the one and only Mr. Phil Jones as our featured guest today. We are hosting this event for our realtor and business partners because we're upon some new times here with the NAR settlement. And listen, in sales and in life, we believe that communication is the defining difference. The ability to build connection, to keep people open and engaged with us, to find a way to help people get where they want to go. The art of communication is the defining difference in the quality of our lives, our relationships, and our business. I met Phil a couple years ago because he literally is everywhere. He is blowing up on stages, just taking over the real estate industry by storm. He coaches within Tom Ferry to the VIP clients. He's spoken at Keynote all over the place. He's written a book, Exactly What to Say, that sold over 2 million copies. And I think that's what we all want, Phil. We want to know exactly what to say. Phil and I, we've come out to Reno. We've spent dinners together. And what I love about you, Phil, is that not only are you dang talented and a great teacher, and you certify guides that teach your work, and there's workshops for exactly what to say and certifications happening every week all over the country. But you're just a damn good human being. You're an engaged father. You've got 4 children, 2 little girls. You're from the UK, blew up your business in Europe and then here in the United States. And you've been successful personally as an entrepreneur, not just as a coach, and sold real estate yourself. Hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate, actually, before you got into the speaking and coaching business. So I think you can really relate to our audiences. You're talking to us in real estate and mortgage every day. You know what we're going through. You know the objections that we have. So we are really excited to learn from you and role play and guide us through how we can get good at these magic words and exactly what to say.
Thanks, Shayla. I mean, this is fun to be here. And I need to let you folks all know that we've never done this before. We've never had rooms of people together to be able to role play, to work around this work. This is Shayla being Shayla saying, hey, Phil, will you help with the thing? I'm like, yeah, what is it? And Shayla's the kind of person where you say yes and then figure out what you've said yes to afterwards, right? I think many of you are familiar with her approach that way. So what we're deciding to do here is to be able to introduce to you some concepts from Exactly What to Say, to share with you the role play cards, to talk about role playing more effectively, and open up some space for you to go, yeah, but what about? Yeah, but what about? Yeah, but what about? So you can talk back into any of the puzzles that you can do. To help me understand what I've got to play with here right now is I see some of you are in rooms, which is awesome. And I see some of you are maybe here, maybe not here because I cannot see you. I also see there are some of you here independently. What I don't know is, though, is how many of you have access to the chat function? So just to test whether you can find the chat function here on Zoom, just do me a massive favor and answer a question for me in the chat if you can. And the question I'd love you to answer is this, is what is your favorite vegetable? And this is a question I'm going to use to judge you. You're all going to be judging each other if you find the ability to be able to put the answers in here. We get to see some people calling a sweet potato a vegetable. Someone's going to be talking about French fries or steak in here in some way and maybe didn't take the right classes at school in some way as to what is a vegetable. But we are all judging each other. And it seems like many of you have found the chat, which is cool for me because it means that we can all have one conversation together at the exact same time. We can all be in the same space and you can join in the chat. There also might be some occasions that we open up some microphones. So with that being said, is either find the Zoom hand or know that I can see most of your faces, that if you want to play along, if you want to chime in at any point, it's like wave your hand around and we'll bring you into the conversation. But let's try to have one conversation at a time, not carnage of 9 people open up their microphone at the exact same moment and nobody hears anybody, that we'll look to bring people into the conversation that way. With all of this work around role play, all of this work around exactly what to say, and this very training that we're in right now, is remember it has to be messy before it's beautiful. Anybody ever been in a script practice before, yes or no? See, the trouble with scripts is there's belief that there's like a right way and a wrong way to do it. The other big trouble with learning scripts is in all the time that I've ever tried to train people on scripts, the one thing I've always failed to be able to do is to teach the other person their lines. Doesn't matter how well rehearsed you get on your lines. For some reason or another, the other person doesn't tend to do the thing that you thought they were supposed to do. So what we're looking at today is not script practice. It is role play, but a form of role play that I think is more on the play side than the role. And it was funny, I was with a group yesterday, and a guy comes to me at the front and says, Phil, you never guess what I did. Is I left my box of role play cards on the coffee table. I'm like, okay, no big deal. You left your box of role play cards on the coffee table. What's the problem? He said, just as we were inviting some friends round for dinner, my daughter comes down, taps me on the shoulder and says, Dad, can I have a word? I says, what is it? He says, Dad, I've seen those cards that you've left on the table. You might want to move them before your dinner guests show up. So I think the 20-year-old daughter thought that the cards that were meant for helping elevate real estate conversations were actually intended for an altogether different reason in the marriage. So just be careful where you leave these laying around, or be careful of the kind of questions they might raise from others, or just enjoy the fact that people are going to judge you based on what you have in their eyesight. And in our world, curiosity is the fuel to great conversation. I think if the daughter was more curious and said, hey, what's the deal with the cards? Chances are she wouldn't have been so quick to judge. But hey ho, who am I to judge this given situation? Good to be here. Hopefully that just gives us a little bit of a warm up and an introduction. But what being as we found the chat, if we're talking about scripting, who can tell me whether scripts are a good idea or a bad idea? What do you think? Good or bad? Good or bad? Good or bad? I like Ray's response here. Like, yeah, a little bit of both. A little bit of both. Well, share with me some reasons why scripts might be a bad idea. What could be a reason that scripts are less than perfect? Because they feel fake, because they feel rigid, because they're too mechanical, because you don't want to sound like a robot, because they're not personalized, because they don't say the right thing back. Yeah, limited responses. Sounding canned. Well, let me position this a slightly different way. Has anybody here ever watched a movie that made them cry? Yeah, I hate to break it to you. That, my friends, was just an actor reading a script. Oh, actually, let me correct myself. It wasn't an actor reading a script. It was an actor performing a script in character. They weren't reading it. They were performing it. And who did they need to be? They needed to be someone else. Who do you need to be when you're toe-to-toe with a client or a prospect? Well, just yourself. Or perhaps a version of yourself. And the reason I say that is I think it's okay to give ourselves the gift that we can be versions of self, not just one self all the time. And when people are saying, like, you should be yourself and be authentic, I'm like, which version of me would you like me to be today? Because I'm pretty darn sure I'm not the same person everywhere I show up. You imagine me showing up with this level of energy everywhere I went? I'd have very few friends and probably no longer be married, right? Like, would probably be the case, is that you have to pick a version of self. So scripts are useful if you can step into character and perform them. Actor wasn't reading their lines. Also, isn't it true that many of the best movie moments happened when the actor decided to go off script? For an actor to go off script, what needed to exist? There's got to be a script, right? To go off script. The actor didn't wing it. They didn't make it up. It wasn't improv. It was the actor making a decision in the moment that says, I understand the intention of the director, of the writing, of the screenplay. I understand what I'm being asked to do. And using all of my experience, I believe I can make an alternative choice that can serve this moment slightly better. So I'm going to trust my instincts and I'm going to try something that I believe is going to deliver a better outcome than what was written in the script. That's a conscious choice. That's what a pro does. See, a pro doesn't wing it. And we're entering into a skills-based market. See, we're still going to sell about the same number of homes. The difference is going to be who sells them and how much you get paid when you sell them. That's going to be the only difference. It's who's involved in the transaction and what were the agreed terms of your part to play in the transaction. About the same number of homes will sell. And the differentiator between you and people like you isn't just your hard work and your endeavor and your product knowledge and your skill set and your experience. It is knowing exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to make it count. That stuff is important too. So I encourage you to learn your lines. Because did you know that a human being cannot write, perform, and edit at the same time? It's scientifically impossible for a human being to write, perform, and edit at the same time. Yet how many times do you step into a moment where you're writing what it is you're about to say, whilst you're saying it, whilst you're thinking about the thing you just said? And you wonder why you find yourself lost for words. By alternative, if you can think about the things you're going to say ahead of time and be ready for the moments that matter, you can actually show up with greater levels of intention. You can be more present because you can listen with a greater level of expertise. Because you're not worried about what to say next or what you just said, is you can stay in time with the beat of the music. What pros would do was they would get ready. So when we wrote the role play card decks, and I say we wrote the role play card decks, we didn't put an instruction manual in on purpose. People are like, yeah, but what are the answers to the objections, Phil? I'm like, that's not the point. This is a practice, not something you get to master. Just like meditation is a practice, yoga is a practice. You don't get to master it, you don't get to crush it, you just get to be able to make a dedicated effort to practice. And what do pros do so they're ready for game day? What pros do so they're ready for game day is they practice. They're diligent at their practice. So the role play cards are actually a smorgasbord of different ways that conversations can come to life, which is the real way that they come to life in our lives, is not necessarily with the greatest level of predictability. Give me a show of hands right now. Who has the role play cards? Who has them present? Some of you, most of you loving this is Amy's like, I got them right here. I can see the box. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. And who's familiar with the book, Exactly What to Say? Or Exactly What to Say for Real Estate? So we know some of the words, we know some of the work. What often people are challenged by, though, is how do they bring those words to life in their real world? You might not have the same British accent I have, so you might be thinking that doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth. So what I thought I'd do before we get into greater explanations of how to use the roleplay cards is I'd share with you some simple foundational knowledge that sits behind all the sequences of words in the book that can help you understand some of the why behind the what. I think it was Mark Twain that first said, if I had more time, I'd have written a shorter letter. It took a lot of time to be able to condense that book down to something so tiny. It means that we leave a lot out. One of the big things that we left out of the book was the operating system, the thinking framework behind how you'd approach every conversation. I left it out on purpose, just like I left the rules out on purpose in the roleplay cards. But I figured if I could share with all of you today that thinking framework about how you can approach every conversation, you can bring this towards how you roleplay, and more importantly, how you play out in the real world as well. Would that be useful, yes or no? Awesome. Heidi thinks it's a good idea. Love that. Well, because Heidi said it's a good idea, we're going to do it. See, if you are to be more successful in every conversation, you only need to consider 3 critical ingredients. Just 3 critical ingredients. The first is curiosity. Behind curiosity is empathy. And then behind empathy is courage. Those are the 3 ingredients for us to be more influential in any conversation. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're like, great, Phil, 3 words. Heard those 3 words before, nothing new there. What's the big point? So perhaps it's more, why those 3 words and why specifically in that order? Let's take this curiosity piece first of all. And answer me this in the chat, answer me this out loud in your own environments. Is now a good time to buy a house, yes or no? Is now a good time to sell a house, yes or no? See, this is my point. to the industry as a whole. Stop it. At least most of you, stop it. See, we fail to talk in terms of other people's interest because we are showing up talking about our interest, and we wonder why we have a reputation of only being about the money. The real answer is it depends. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation with somebody who knows best? They're so sure of themselves, they're so certain of their point of view, that the more sure they are of themselves, the less sure you are of them? They like believe that something is absolutely right, and you're like, really now, huh? It actually rubs you up the wrong way, creates friction, makes you want to prove the other person wrong. In every conversation, you would like to insert your content, right? You want to tell them why you're better than the next guy. You want to tell them how much you think their house is worth. You want to share with them the benefits they get from working with an experienced independent LO as opposed to getting the loan from their bank. You want them to understand all the magic that you can do to keep the deal together. But if you insert your content before you've earned their context, you just made a noisy decision, a heck of a lot noisier. So the starting point from any conversation is a position of curiosity with a goal to understand their context. Answer me this, is a 7% interest rate expensive, yes or no? Let's play it another way. Is a Rolls Royce expensive, yes or no? See, the answer is it still depends, because it depends on what it's being compared to. Versus a Bugatti Veyron, a Rolls Royce is chump change. Versus a Ford F-150, it's quite lofty. But without comparison, you cannot deliver value. So what you have to understand at the start of any conversation is the other person's context. Yet, do you know what almost everybody in this industry does when invited to potentially help somebody with a product or service? You show up and throw up with the best version of the my dad's better than your dad story, instead of taking the time to capture the other person's context, to find out what's really going on. And the trouble is if you don't spend the time to get their context, you can't go back and get it. If you don't start there and you try to backpedal and backfill that information, you'd be in trouble. That's why curiosity is the starting point for every great conversation. Who in this room has ever delivered exceptional advice, like brilliant advice, for entirely the wrong problem? I know I'm guilty. Parents here in the room, we've probably done this more than twice. Found myself in a conversation with my 17-year-old a short while back. And she was looking for some help. At least I thought she was looking for some help. She was actually just expressing something that was happening in her world. She never actually asked for help. I just launched into advice monster mode, like many of us sometimes find ourselves doing. And the words left my mouth. The words left my mouth of when I was in your shoes. Remember, I'm talking to my 17-year-old daughter. I looked down at her feet. I've never in my life wore footwear that looked like that. Never in my life. So what right did I have to give advice on a situation I had no context for? By alternative, I stopped myself in the tracks. I stayed curious for an obnoxious period of time. She decided all by herself exactly what to do, which was somewhere about the same as what I would have advised her to do. But I gave zero advice. Curiosity is the fuel to great conversation because the other person decides, not because you project or pitch your idea. When you look at the majority of the cards in the role play deck, when you look at how to utilize those word sequences in the real world, if you are not phrasing those questions with curiosity as your tone, as your energy, as your default position, you could be showing up arrogant. There's a sequence of words there, right? Like, what do you understand? I could say, well, what do you understand about all of your options that are available when it comes to buying a home right now? That is a curious question. I could say, what do you understand about everything's involved in buying a home? And that's combative. So the tone should be curious. When you're curious for long enough, it dances you towards this position of empathy. Empathy is like a buzzword. I think too few people understand what it really means. Many people confuse it with sympathy. It's different to that. Best definition I've ever heard for the word empathy comes from a speaker friend of mine by the name of John Acuff. And John Acuff defines empathy as to care about what the people you care about care about. I can't do better than that, so I'm borrowing John's. The simple thing to remember to be empathetic is that people do things for their own reasons and not yours. Our goal is to be able to say, because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, for those reasons, I'd recommend blank, blank, and blank, for their reasons and not yours. I know that these events and these rooms have been put together by loan originators, and we have to understand something remarkably important. I've never met a child that says, when I grow up, I cannot wait till the day I can get a 30-year agreement to pay a compounding level of interest back to a faceless organization to provide complications in my annual tax returns and look to give consideration to all the different variations of how this is going to impact my long-term financial future. There are no 8-year-olds with those desires. So from that, we have to be pretty darn clear that nobody actually wants a mortgage. 0 people want a mortgage. So much so that there are lots of people out there that are actively saying, how do I get rid of my mortgage? More than that is, did you know that nobody actually wants a house? Nobody wants to buy a house and nobody wants to sell a house, let alone have a mortgage. People want to own a house because. People want to sell their house because. If you are not using questions to get to a position of empathy that you can be relatable, where you are not talking to them about rates, relatable, not rates, relates, close words, very different, then what you're doing is you're sounding like everybody else. If you're trying to have a conversation about how smart you are about mortgages or how smart you are about the real estate market right now, they're going to find somebody smarter, or they're going to combat their smarts versus your smarts. You need to be able to talk to them about their because. And you're asking questions to be able to help them say, because of the fact that you said that it's really important that the next time that you bid on a home, that your offer gets maybe a little more attention than it has done previously. Then for that reason, I recommend that we rerun a pre-approval through us, that we present the offer both with the loan originator's recommendation and the real estate agent's recommendation to the strength of your offer, and we wipe out this contingency and this contingency and this contingency, so your offer stands out stronger than your previous offers have done, because of the fact that you said that it's important that your offers get greater recognition on this occasion. This helpful just as a framework to be thinking about how to come into these conversations? Because only then do we execute on this courage piece. And by courage, I'm not talking about jump out of an aeroplane courage, go to war courage, climb a mountain courage, different type of courage. I'm talking about the courage to just ask. Yes, I wrote the book Exactly What to Say. It really should have been called Exactly What to Ask. What are all the words in the book? They are prefaces and tools to be able to ask you for the things, ask others for the things that you would want in life, softer, easier, to provide you with more poise or precision, the questions that you're going to ask. So I'm talking about the courage to just ask, because when you ask for what you want in life, there's a good chance you might get it. And if you do not ask, you do not get, or you do not receive. So with that in mind and those 3 ingredients, let's think about how we role play. You folks are all together today, and when we created this card game, my intention was that there would be rooms like the one that owners put together here, and the one that Brent's put together, and that Chantry's put together, and Emma's put together, and Bill's put together, and all these great rooms that you put together, where people are going to elegantly mess about together, thinking about the conversations that come up in real estate. So the fact that you're all doing this right now is like, yee! It's like exciting times to me. It's good fun. Because the beauty of this game is that nobody is actually dictating it. The game is creating the context of the conversations. And there are three parts to it, right? So if I was playing with you and I was leading a conversation in the room, well, the first thing I might do is I might grab one of the orange cards and just ask somebody to pick one in the room and say, just pick a card, pick any card. And this is the closest I get to being a magician. So if you were to pick a card, you're picking one of many different scenarios. Is anybody in a position to pull an orange card right now? Because if you pull an orange card, what we're going to do is create scene. It's going to be like charades. And look, Andre just held that one up. I kind of saw it, but I couldn't see it. So it's a seller lead, right? Have any of you ever found yourself in a conversation with a seller as a lead? See, this is both true for mortgage advisors and real estate agents. Funny, huh? Situations that are ridiculously relevant to everybody who's here at this moment in time. So the situation is we're dealing with a seller lead. Light me up in the chat right now. What might be some of the frustrations or worries that exist from a seller lead right now? You're going to start a conversation with a seller lead. This is Todd saying somebody's like thinking, how fast can I sell? How long will it take? Do I still have to pay commissions? I've heard all this NAR stuff. What do I need to do to prep my house? How much will I net from the sale? So given that we are in this situation where it's a seller lead and we understand many of the frustrations that could exist with somebody in this situation, we're going to want to start this conversation with some degree of control, correct? When you call these leads right now, what are often the opening words that leave your mouth? I'm pretty sure I know the answer. It's the same question that the $15 an hour sales associate at a retail store asks you when you arrive at the store. Which is a version of, how can I help? I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a customer. Do you remember the fact that you're all consumers too? Has there ever been a time where you traveled across town in a rush, desperately looking to find something in a store? You're in a pinch. You have no idea of how to navigate said store. No idea how to find what it is that you're desperate to be able to find. And when somebody at the front of that store greets you in that environment and says, how can I help? What do you say? Even though you were desperate for help, it could have saved you a ton of time. We reject help when offered from strangers because we're worried what that help is going to cost, because we haven't earned context first. And the reason being is because it was a stupid question. See how predictable this is, but we play with the same predictable behavior. So if you then looked at what the white cards are that we have in the roleplay deck, you'll see that we've categorized them for you. And all you could do is you could take the blue cards in the white cards, the blue tops on the white cards, and you realize I've categorized a series of rejection-free openings. So if you were to pull one of these cards, just one of these white with the blue top cards on it, you might reach for a set of words like these ones. Now, this is a rejection-free opening formula. Who has the ability to be able to open up their microphone here right now? Who wants to play along?
We're
Andre,
on.
looks like, Ah, look at this. Chantry's on here as well, and everybody that's here. If we were to just take these words,
It might be up to you, buddy.
and I'm going to make you big screen so I can see a little better on my side here as well, I can't because I'm not the co-host. I don't have the ability to do that, but hey.
It's building curiosity.
Who's going to take the lead? Don't see me. Julia?
If you were to take a seller lead scenario that you were picking up the phone to today, how would you utilize this sequence of words to be able to start the conversation? What do we got?
I'm not sure if it's for you, but let's talk and figure out what's best for you.
Okay. Keep going. Just all of you, just keep jamming on this. There's no wrong answers.
Who else?
Have you considered this option?
That's you leading the witness, my friend.
Next.
Tell me
If
what
I
it
ask
is.
a room of 5-year-olds to do this, we already have 45 different examples. But you see how paralyzed we are of not wanting to get it wrong. I'm saying,
I'm not
quote,
sure
unquote,
if
F
it's
it
for
up.
you, but let me show you how I can net you more money in your pocket.
Ah, yeah, that'll kind of work. You're covering a lot of distance with one line, though.
I'm not sure if it's for you, but what led you to wanting to sell your house?
Okay. That feels like I'm not sure if it's for you, but I'm playing golf with my buddies at the weekend. You know what I mean? We just completely disjointed it and try to force in an agenda. So see, what happens sometimes is one sequence of words by itself is challenging. And this is the mistake that most of us make, is that we try to play a checkers move to win a chess game. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's for you. I'm not sure it's for you, but we have a program that might fill your needs and help you sell your house soon.
Right. Because there's a giant curiosity gap in that example there, right? That's what you created there, Brendan, is people are like, what is it? Tell me some more about it. Let's have a longer conversation. Because if you're calling a seller lead, ideally you want a few minutes on the phone, correct? You don't want this to be one and done in 30 seconds where they're like, send me the link. There needs to be some process of discovery. So you could pick up the phone from a seller lead and say, what did you say, Brendan?
I said, I'm not sure it's for you, but we have a program that might help you sell your home and help you accomplish your goals.
Love that. And what I love about that is the use of words like might. Because if any of you are not remembering, is curiosity is the fuel to great conversation, right? We start curious. Might, may, possibly, could be are all great insertions that can allow for a more meaningful conversation because we're not showing up certain. But what could we do if, for example, and I'll come back to Chantry's group here as well, what if I gave you 2 sequences of words in combo? How could you be more playful with a seller lead right now to start a conversation? Let's come back to Chantry's room and see what you might be able to do if you were to use 2 sequences of words together.
I'm not sure if it's for you, but can we meet for 15 minutes and talk about,
Use open-minded.
Would you be open-minded?
There you go.
Would
Yeah,
you-
you had it.
would you be open-minded to sit down with me for 15 minutes and talk about what your wants and needs?
See how much more flow there is on that? But you see, sometimes we have to start these conversations. So let's look at what could come first. Is if we're to get into this conversation, the easiest way to start a phone call is not with the words, is now a good time to talk. Because that was awesome in 1986. Less than awesome in 2024. To start a conversation, what we're looking for is a polite opening, a mutually agreeable fact, and then an easy to answer question. So let's play on this for a second. And I know that we're focusing on you and your team that's here right now, but answer us in the chat. Is it helpful just seeing somebody else wrestle on this? Because it has to be messy before it's beautiful, right? There is no, like, it's a perfect way of us being able to do things. I just managed to mute your room by accident. So if you folks can unmute yourself again, that'll be cool. And we're going to stay with you on this. And you're going to help develop an OFQ for a seller lead that we're calling with these concerns. Can you guys find your unmute button again? I think I muted you by accident.
Yeah, we're good.
Aha, we're back. So we're looking to start this conversation, right? It's cold. You're going to be picking up the phone. It's going to go ring, 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 ring. They're going to answer. You're going to then deliver an opening, a fact, a question, a polite opening, a mutually agreeable fact, and then an easy to answer question. If the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it, understand you can put some thoughtful thought into what leaves your mouth before it leaves your mouth. So engineer the conversation. What might be the opening?
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Got 1,000 calls from
Username,
realtors
right.
right now.
It's probably the effect of why you're calling them.
Hello, Jan, I'm calling because.
I'm calling because I noticed your house didn't sell.
Okay,
Would you be
Question.
open-
could be
Yeah.
true, right? I'm calling because I noticed your house didn't sell. Sure, that would be a mutually agreeable fact. It's a little sneaky though, because my inside voice is like, how the heck do you know that?
Can we get together so I can show you how you can get that home sold so you can get to your next destination?
We could, but it's pretty forward.
Hello, I noticed that your neighbors down the street sold for X amount. Are you
That
open to
works.
meeting for 15 minutes this afternoon to talk about selling your home?
You could do that, yeah.
What about this? What's your plans that your house, what's your plans now that your house didn't sell?
We got to open.
Okay. We need an opening, we need a mutually agreeable fact, we need an easy to answer question. But can you see how I'm sitting in this the whole time? I haven't told anybody they've done anything wrong yet. And I know Brendan's here struggling, being like, I can make this better, I can make it better, I can make it better. I know that. The mess is to sit in the mess. Let's play with this for a while.
Say like, good morning, I noticed your neighbor's home sold. Was that
I
a
think
good
we're
thing
making-
for you or a bad thing?
Okay. I like how easy that question is to answer, right? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing. Great. It's a bad thing. Great. Like, you're not losing either way on how they answer that. The mistake that many people make when they use an opening fact question is they put a hard to answer question at the end.
Yeah, I'd keep it simple. Like,
Yeah.
do you own the home at 2305 East?
Yeah. Or it could be, are you folks still living there? Because they might have put the home on the market, it didn't sell, but they're actually living on the other side of the country right now, and they're not actually currently occupying the home. But the key to an easy to answer question is it has to come out on reflex. So I'd be thinking about every conversation you're looking to start and say, what is my opening? What are my mutually agreeable facts? What are the easy to answer questions? Do you folks have the deck of cards in front of you?
Yes.
Because what you could now do is we could stay in this same space and we could say, well, we're no longer with a seller lead. What we're actually is we're now talking to somebody at an open house. We just swap out to another scenario. If you're at an open house, how might you start a conversation with the same fears and reservations that we brought up earlier with an opening fact and a question?
Are you in the market or are you just looking?
So what you're going to do is somebody's going to walk up to the front door of your open house, and before you've had any greetings or any interactions, you're going to say you're in the market or you're just looking. So we're going to discourage them to communicate with us in our welcome.
Do you live in the neighborhood?
Where's your opening? Where's your fact? And where's your question? What I love about sessions like this is we realize how collectively incompetent the entire industry is. Right? This isn't unique to you. The whole industry is. So see who you can help out here in the chat. at an open house. We're speaking to somebody that we want to start a conversation in. We're aware of what some of the thoughts and fears could be in their mind right now. All we want to do is to put a pawn into play with an opening, a fact, a question. The opening is just polite. In an open house, that could be as simple as good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, whatever it is you might want to say. That's a simple opening. But what's a mutually agreeable fact?
This home is for sale.
This is a beautiful home. That they're at your open house.
Yeah. Do you have any questions, something I may be able to answer for you while you're
That's
looking
about
at
as
the
helpful.
home?
Is there anything you're looking for today that I can help you with? And you say, no, I'm just looking. You see how predictable things could be?
Yeah.
Welcome to 123 ABC Street.
So
Sure. That's a good opening. What's a mutually agreeable fact?
maybe I found that most people that come to open houses are either looking to buy a house or their neighbors wanting to peek in on the neighbors. Which one are you?
I don't mind that. That's a fair statement that I think is pretty widely understood, and people are going to answer that quite freely. You're going to capture some information from them fairly quickly. That works. That works. But what you can then do is you can build on that, right? What if you would then say, I'm not sure if it's for you, but how open-minded would you be to? That could be as simple as, I'm not sure if it's for you, but how open-minded would you be to sharing some of your details on a registration form? As opposed to signing over there.
Yeah, that's good.
And what I'm inviting you to do is to slow the process down if you want to speed the outcome up.
Yeah.
Try to get to the outcomes you're looking for in 1, 2, 3, 4 moves as opposed to 5. And with the role play cards, you can force yourself through situations in orders. You can say, well, how do I put 2 of these together, 3 of these together, 4 of them together? How do I shuffle them in a different way to be more thoughtful? I want you to note here is I haven't told anybody they've done anything wrong. I've just said what it may bring up in somebody else's mindset, what the next move might be as a result of you delivering upon that. If we're going to have more effective role plays, chances are we have to create a space that it's okay to mess things up when we are in a hypothetical environment. What's beautiful here when you're sharing these examples that you're wrestling through, I'm seeing others here in the chat and faces of others here that I can see in the room that are light bulbs go off when things work. Light bulbs shut down when they're like, ooh, that doesn't quite work. So actually creating an environment where the noise comes out of your mouth in a playful environment, like the one we're all in right now, allows for a learning experience where there is no right and there is no wrong. There is just repetition. What I'm imagining that all of you are looking for is more confidence in conversation.
Mhm.
Confidence without experience is actually arrogance. What roleplay does is it accelerates experience. It gives you a quantity of at-bats before you have to be at-bat for real. So when you show up at an at-bat for real, you've got reps. You've thought about this before. You've wrestled on it in a safe place, and you've got feelings of like, I've got this. I'm more ready for these moments. Brendan, I know you're itching to be able to say something, so I'm going to tag you in here a second. Is just give me some articulation from your point of view as we wrestle through that, what did you learn? What did you take from it? How are you going to carry practice forward into your world, seeing the way that we play here?
That's a great observation. I think you said something that I've been waiting 20 years to hear. And you said, slow the process down to speed the outcome up.
Yeah. Now that is my quote, and where it was actually first echoed to me in a way that I saw it clean in the face is I did some training work with the United States Marines. And what the Marines taught me was that they have a phrase inside their body of work, which is that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That's what they're trained and that's what they echo to when they're stepping into a hostile environment. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I figured if it's good enough for them when they're going to step into a life or death scenario, then chances are the same might be true in our world as well. And when we are looking at the value of a relationship of a consumer in the home buying process, both for loan originators and for real estate pros, is that's a very, very valuable commodity. Many of your competition are playing like there's an infinite amount of opportunity. There isn't. I find it fascinating as well is Zillow sold 30 million leads last year to only 6 million homes that were sold. So there is a lot of false information that gives us the belief that there is more opportunity out there than what really is. What you're looking for is an over-indexing, obnoxious slice of market share in your market. You're not just believing that there's more fish in the sea, more fish in the sea, more fish in the sea, which means that winning in the next decade isn't winning the marketing game. It's winning the conversion game. Obnoxious levels of conversion is what it's going to take to win. Which,
I
if
love
you
this.
get the opportunity to be toe-to-toe with a consumer, don't treat it like there's another one coming. Like, this is your bus. Make sure you get on the bus and that you stay on the bus and that you ride the bus to its destination. Don't think, well, if this one doesn't like me, I'll get the next one, because the next one might not be coming that quick. And if you can help them go at their pace quickly, then you can get obnoxious levels of conversion. But some of this means even not treating every lead like they're only a good lead if they're ready to close in the next 30, 60, 90 days. So another thought I have for realtors here on this conversation is please, please, pretty please, do not pay for leads in 2025 that you could have earned today. It's not worth it. It's too big of a slice of your pie. Own the relationships by slowing things down. So let's take a beat for a second here with anybody who's willing to be able to chime in. What questions do you have for me about how you can carry more of this forward into your world? Because I only showed you just some rejection-free opening formulas. And Shay, you can chime in here as well if that's helpful, but love to just hear back from some other voices as to what you can do to carry this forward.
I'd love, Brendan, if you could have us, Phil, if you could have us go around with one. We did this at the retreat and it was really helpful. Like if everybody has to stay on one opening and you can hear every person's creativity with that one opening. So if you give us a scenario, the loan officer is being that buyer and maybe there's a little back and forth before the next person has to do it, that would be, it was hard,
See
but
what
good.
we can light up here in the chat. And I am going to give people some exercises they can do by themselves in their smaller groups as well when we're done, which I think is going to be fun too, that they can do without me being here to play dad. But I tell you what I'd love to see, just even using this one example here. Let's take the open-minded tool as a way to start a conversation in the rejection-free way. Let's think about a scenario that we're all stepping into, which is a conversation we all should be making more of, which is when we are servicing past clients or past prospects. So if you are reconnecting with people that you've done business with in the past or almost done business with in the past, knowing all the things that could be reservations or concerns in their mind, how would you phrase a how open-minded or a would you be open-minded question to see if you can get into a more meaningful conversation? See if we can light some up here in the chat.
Can you repeat that, Phil? What's the specific ask?
The ask is to create an open-minded example to utilize towards contacting a past client or a past prospect. And we've got it here, raise like, would you be open-minded to seeing how much your home is currently worth? Todd Bookspan is saying, how open-minded would you be to a quick call to catch up? And what we're going to do is we're going to write a playbook collectively right now, just around one example of magic words. When Michelle's saying, would you be open-minded to having a meeting about your home value in the current market? Brendan's saying, how open-minded would you be to planning out your next 5 to 10 years real estate vision? Jason is saying, how open-minded would you be to see what your purchase power would be if you sold your home? And what I'm loving about these examples that we're seeing in right now is they all have enough of a curiosity gap in. They enough of a tell me some more, what would that look like? Hartman's saying, would you be open-minded to a meeting about your goals and selling and buying a new home? And if I'm to share just some fast feedback and some risks on some of these examples, and not picking on anybody individually, but picking on everybody collectively, just so you know that I'm not being mean to one of you, I'm being mean to all of you, is the risk that we can have with many of these sequences of words in isolation is trying to use one sequence of words to carry too much distance. So Brendan, I'll pick on yours. When you asked how open-minded would you be to planning out your next 5 to 10 year real estate vision, because you put 5 to 10 years in there, if I've got a 4-year vision, this is non-inclusive to me. If you simply used a word like mid to long term, you cannot lose. Because mid to long term is everything between the next 6 months and the next 60 years. But 5 to 10 years put you in a box that might miss their intentions, and it sounds like it's scripted. When I look at the example here on Laurie's of how open-minded are you to seeing how much equity you have in your home and how much buying power you have for an upgrade, which of those two questions were you asking? If you ask somebody 2 questions at once, they'll probably answer neither. If you ask questions one at a time, then people can go in the flow of the music. So my encouragement with playing with the cards, and something I'd encourage all of you to do if you're brave enough to be able to do it, is to take any one scenario and take every card in the deck and run the whole sequence in order. So why don't we perhaps see what that could look like? Would that be useful as an exercise? And to do so, why don't you throw me an example that I can be put on the spot with? So what do you want to see me wrestle with? Is this Desiree giving me something? So we're at the closing table. Okay, so Desiree, we're at the closing table. And what am I concerned about? Open your microphone up, Desiree, and let's see if we can jam on this together. Yeah, got you.
Okay.
So
we can
closing table. What am I looking to achieve at the closing table? Just so I've got a North Star.
Okay. I don't know. Come on, guys. Last minute panic question. Let's see.
Okay.
Asking for referral at closing.
Okay,
So
there you
trying to get
go.
a referral.
Perfect.
Referral at closing, right? So we're at the closing table. And what I need is an opening fact question to kick this thing off, right? So what am I going to do is I'm going to say it's been a huge joy to be able to work with you. This has been a fun experience for me, and I'm delighted that we managed to be able to get you locked into your home. Have you found the service that we provided to you valuable over the duration? They're going to say
Yes.
right? And we need that to be a yes if we got a chance of getting a referral. What I'm then going to say is I'm not sure if it's for you, but how open-minded would you be to finding some other ways that we might be able to help each other in the future? And you're going to say, sure. I'm going to say, who do you know that has talked about potentially, possibly moving from the suburbs to the city or the city to the suburbs, right? Depending upon who it is that I've just spoken to. And they're going to say, yeah, there's a few people that I know that meet that criteria. You see how quickly in 4 moves I've got to a point of being able to lead towards a referral. If I continue to run the deck in order, what I would then do is I'd reach for my perspective changes. And I'd say, well, what do you understand about how businesses of ours like grow our customer base? They say not much. You say, well, what is your experience of others working with somebody that doesn't get the level of service like the ones that we provided? They say, I've heard many people complain about it. I'd say, how important is it to you that your friends and family find themselves with access to experienced professionals like us? They're going to say it's pretty darn important. I'm going to say, when was the last time that you found yourself in a conversation where somebody was talking about their next home? I say, how often do they find themselves talking about their next time? And for how long have you found yourself in regular conversation speaking with others? I'm going to, how certain are you that there isn't somebody you care about right now that is potentially going to be making a bad move on real estate because they don't have the right representation? Could it be possible that they'd benefit from a conversation with me? I mean, just imagine them knowing that they could get the same great service that you've got. Because how would you feel if a friend of yours knew that they had access to a great resource and they didn't share it with you? Because if you care enough about other people getting same results as what you do, then we're probably going to want to find a way to broker meaningful introductions. Then what I might want to be able to do is to say, in this same scenario, let me look at assumptive frames and see how I can speed the situation up. I might say, for example, look, I might say, when would be a good time for us to revisit this after you've got the keys and that you've been moved in? And they might be like, give us 2, 3, 4 weeks. I might then say, look, I'm guessing you haven't got around to building a list of people that you want to introduce me to yet. I then might say, I bet you're a lot like me and that you mean to do things with the best intention, but sometimes you just don't find the time. And the way I see it is you have 3 options. Is obviously what you could do is you could look to be able to trawl through every contact that you ever had in your life and make meaningful introductions to them all at once. Or by alternative, you could just decide that there's no way that you can look to introduce our services. Or perhaps you could just think of maybe just one person, someone that's front of mind right now, and you could send a simple message, because there are 2 types of people in this world. There are those that say they're going to do something, and there are those that follow through on their promises. And I could then say, by labeling, is like, don't worry, this is perfectly normal. I know that you're dead busy. The good news is that I'm not going anywhere. I'm committed to this business for the long term. And most people find that what they're looking to be able to do is to refer on an everyday basis, on a regular basis, and they're continually looking for opportunities for us to be able to partner. I then might want to get a little pushback if they're resisting and there's any objections, and they say, well, look, I'll just introduce you as and when anybody asks. I say, really? What makes you say that? They say, well, I'm just remarkably busy. I say, well, would it help if I just shared with you a pile of my business cards so you could share them with others when the opportunity presents itself? And look, before you make your mind up, help me understand, what could I create for you that makes referrals even easier for you? So if I could put maybe a webinar on for you or some form of learning experience for the other people in your market, then would you be able to send out some invites? And then I could say, well, look, just out of curiosity, would that be enough for us to be able to continue our working relationship? And is there any chance you could do me a small favor and start making some of those asks today? Oh, and by the way, just one more thing. What I'm trying to show you is you can use every sequence of words in any given scenario. And can you see how much I just forced myself through using every set of cards in a scenario that was created for Desiree here? And did you hear some of those and be like, that kind of works? That felt like it was forcing. That was a little clunky. Oh, that was good.
No, that was great.
And that would be what I'd encourage you to do when you've got groups here, is sit on the words on order and see if you can get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 examples as a group, and then move on. But stay in the same scenario. And what you're then learning is you're learning how to stack sequences of words. So all of these are notes. You have to learn to play notes in sequence, i.e. to create scales, before you can learn to play jazz. And that's the beauty of a role play group. Create a scenario, understand the problems that could be existing in the minds of the other person, and the black cards will help you with that. So you can just pull a black card and be like, why shouldn't I just list with the #1 agent in the world? Well, let's keep that front of mind. And if we want to make it more complex, let's take 2 more worries, because people rarely have one objection, right? They almost always have many. And they're also not ready to work with any agent at this point in time. Take those 2 scenarios together and then decide, where are we? Those are the concerns. let's go from the beginning to the end of the role play deck. Just in one scenario, one point of objection. Run those while you've taken the time to be together. And then the other exercise you can run together that's remarkably useful is just pick any one of these white cards at random. Any one you like. And decide that today's the day that we're going to write as many examples as we possibly can for utilizing that one sequence of words in context. So if you pull the card most people, like decide it's most people Monday. And what you're then going to do is utilize that sequence of words in context as much as you possibly can. In your huddle as a team, then out in the world as a day. And then when you come back together the next day, share experiences of how it worked in the real world. And that means bring it into text messages, add it into emails, see if you can craft a social media post using those words. Force it into your discussion of ordering your Frappuccino at Starbucks. Look to utilize it when you're negotiating with a vendor on your own home. See what you can do to utilize the words to catalyze an action in your family or in your household. But if you take an elastic band and you stretch it out and you stretch it out and you stretch it out and you stretch it out, it will never go back. That's how muscles grow. So 2 types of practice that I think are insanely valuable for you with these card decks. And I please, please, please invite you to do some of this after I'm gone today while you're all together. Take any scenario, jam the card deck start to finish. Or take any sequence of words, jam as many practical examples and applications of where you could use that in the real world, and you've just built a never-ending practice. Any scenario, all of the cards, any word choice, as many scenarios as possible, and you get to build a never-ending practice. So Shay, is that a helpful exercise?
Yes, and just so we can be laser clear, because most everybody's reserved an extra half hour, you're first going to have everybody draw an orange card. And you're going to have them draw.
The easiest thing of all time, starting point, grab one card from the white deck and write as many examples of how you could use that today as possible. Just brainstorm together. Either everybody shares one example or a car crash of potential examples where it comes into head, it comes out of mouth. Just see if you can speak 100 examples on one card quickly. Then once you've done that, take a scenario that's hot right now in real estate. And if I was to do anything, I'd take the buy-side commission conversation that is highly likely to be something we need to be ready for. And I'd look at it and say, can I run the card deck start to finish, crafting an example of how I'd use that sequence of words or that concept to help support me in that moment? And then maybe what you might do is give everybody in the room one card and go from 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. What I would encourage you as you're trying to get clear on these rules is don't worry about it. Don't spend the next 30 minutes saying, what are we supposed to be doing again? Just do something. And you'll start to be able to get reps. It has to be messy before it's beautiful.
Thank you all so much for being here, Phil, for your time, your wisdom, your brilliance. This is exactly what we need right now. Having confidence in communication is undoubtedly what we all want. And I know that many of us are going to listen to this recording over and over and over again. I was thinking about listening to Phil doing that mismatch of all the magic words in my car as I'm walking into an appointment. Having the deck in my car as I'm going, just pick one. Most people, it'll keep me in that state of slowing down, of being curious, of showing people empathy, and slow down to speed up. I think that was the key takeaway here. Thank you all for backing my people, for coming and doing something uncomfortable. I really hope you challenge yourself to take one of these words and get messy with it the next half hour. Like, challenge yourself to just go, that was great, but actually do the work and stay in it. I know I'm going to be doing everything you said, Phil. I'm going to take one a week. I know I've wanted to come to New York and do your certification, and I just committed to myself that I'm going to take one card a week and just mess around with it and journal on it and write on it until I've got such mastery. That's what I'm going to do. For all of you who love these role play cards and want to play with yourself and practice, go to Phil Jones' website and gather these. Buy his books, show up at his talks. That's the way we can continue to support you, Phil. Go find Phil on Instagram. And,
if anybody wants more cards, wants to understand how to get cards, then if you just DM me on my Instagram, the word roleplay, then we'll send you the link. And if you buy the cards for us, we'll also invite you into the Exactly What to Say roleplay group, where you get to be able to ask any of your questions. We have now a Facebook group with over 1,500 people in it that are sharing ways that they're utilizing these cards, etc. So you can come plug and play into that group too. And what's interesting is I see questions here in the chat, like from Brendan, which is, what's a simple swap? And this just proves to me whether you have or haven't read the book, because there's a whole chapter on what simple swaps are in the book. And it's meant to be an accompanying guide. But what a simple swap is, to answer the question, is I believe that every word that leaves your mouth is either helping or hurting. Every word that leaves your mouth is helping or hurting. Nothing is neutral. And that we should be able to look for simple swaps in our language, where there is something that you are saying that currently could be swapped for something else. An example could be that you talk about everybody as clients, but you probably should swap that word for something like families, or add specificity that says busy mums, or is talking about young professionals. But when we say clients or prospects, that's internal language and isn't necessarily serving towards individuals. And I won't give you the exhaustive list of simple swaps, because I've spent a lifetime of writing swap this for that, and I've currently got about 3,500 examples of swap this for that. And my encouragement with simple swaps, and we teach this to people inside our world, is to find one a week. Where is there a word in your world that is sabotaging, that you could swap it for a word that is helpful? And I give another quick example so you'll know the kinds of things I'm thinking about, is, do you have a contact form on a web page of yours that you're looking for people to complete? What does the button say? See, I've seen many buttons on contact forms that you'd hope people to complete, where the button has the word submit written on it. In what world does submit feel like the right language, other than the WWE? Feels like a big ask. See, often we'll swap that word on websites that we build in our agency business to words like next. If I swap the word submit for the word next on a contact form and I put 2 arrows behind it, we can double form completion, just in one simple swap of words. Those of you looking to recruit agents here, one of the most self-sabotaging sequences of language could be is when you talk about something as my team. Because if it's my team, who's not in it? The other person. Whereas if you call it the team and you swap the word my for the, this feels like a team that I'd like to play on. So hopefully, Brendan, you're getting the point. Is there a gazillion moments where we could be looking at, is that word helping or hurting? Contracts are serious. Simple one-page forms are easy. Signature is a big deal. Autograph, dang, that's fun. And you're going to find your own language, your own cadence, your own thoughts around this as to what feels right for you. But find the simple swaps in your life. And you could jam for a morning with everybody in your office about, where could there be some simple swaps in language? Let's look for words that are hurting us that could be swapped for words that are helping us. My boy Todd here in the chat says, yeah, swap the word cost for the word investment. If today cost me 10 grand, it was a bad day. If I invested 10 grand today, it was a good day. Same action, different perception. Shay, thanks for trusting me with this. Looking forward to seeing you in Vegas. Encourage you all to keep playing together. This is not supposed to be a complete training. It is supposed to be an encouragement for you to practice with more intention. So go practice, make it messy together, slow the process down.
Thank you all.
Doesn't need to be right,
Thank
just
you.
better.